The question, because we've got many good questions here tonight, from Glyn Rowett, please. Glyn Rowett.
With wind turbines and solar panel fields impacting on our countryside, are we seeing any benefit in energy costs?
Yes, you've got, of course, wind turbines down here galore and solar panels coming, I think, in the West Country. Are we seeing any benefit in energy costs, which is the big issue of the month, I suppose? Jeremy Browne.
We're not seeing a direct benefit in terms of energy costs from wind generation because it's a more expensive form of electricity generation than some of the alternatives. But I do think it's important that we diversify and modernise the way that we produce energy in this country. And I think 10 years, 20, 50 years' time from now, some of the countries in the world, the industrial world, will have made that transition and will have modern technologies which enable them to have the energy requirements they need for their industry and their households, but compatible with protecting their environment and the global environment. And others won't have made that transition. And it is important that we do make that transition. But all new technology, when it comes on tap, is in its early stages more expensive and gets developed and improved over time. And I'm not saying that, wind turbines or solar farms are the solution to all of our problems or all of our energy needs. And I think some of the solar farms in particular have been sited in bad areas and they industrialise parts of the countryside in a way that I'm uncomfortable with, because I don't think they are farms in any recognisable sense. They are the equivalent of building a new housing estate and on a field without having the benefit of being able to live in the houses.
You'd rather have houses, would you, than solar panels?
Well, the regulation...
Or maybe houses with solar panels.
Well, if I was going to have fields of solar panels, I would rather have them on all new build houses to start with, and on factory roofs and other areas before I put them on arable land. But my point is that I think having a reasonable proportion of our energy mix from renewable sources is a desirable objective, and we should pursue that.
And to cut to the current issue, do you think it fair and right that energy consumers, domestic consumers, should be paying for these expensive ways of producing electricity at the moment in their own bills, week by week? Or would you like to see them funded by taxation?
Well, one way or the other, people will pay for them.
Well, hang on. Well, that's not quite true.
Well, it is.
No, because if you don't pay income tax, you wouldn't pay for it.
No, but income tax only makes up a quite small proportion of the total taxation the government raises. But, look, I mean, I think there are a whole range of measures which are paid for. A lot of them are actually to do with loft insulation, for example, for people who have low incomes. I'm not doing a list. All I'm saying is that I think energy reduction is important as well, more efficient use of energy, the whole range of different measures to make us a better, more efficient country at how we use energy and how we generate energy, and this is part of that mix.
Can I just go back to the question before we go on, Glyn Rowett? What scale of wind turbines and solar panels are there here in the West Country? Are you exercised by?
Well, I'm in agreement of alternative source of power, but we see in Cornwall, especially on our beautiful countryside, there's a mass of wind turbines just going up, and more recently, these fields of solar panels, and all we do see is an increase in our energy costs, and we're not actually seeing any benefit as a ratepayer in this county. Yet we seem to have masses and massive turbines and solar panel fields.
Matthew Hancock.
Well, wind farms we're told, are there to save the environment, but put them in the wrong place and they ruin the natural environment. So, you know, we've got to have a mix of energy supplies, but we've got to do it in a sensible way that's consistent with what people want locally, and where if there is a development, then there's something in it for people whose view can be affected and in some cases ruined. And you know, we've seen over the last few weeks the landing of a deal to build the first nuclear power station for years, which is low carbon, of course, and that will mean that it's cheaper than wind turbines. And if we get that going, then we won't need to build nearly so many wind turbines and ruin beautiful views that we have right across the country.
Paris Lees.
I tell you what, these companies are making a profit out of something that we all need. I think we would all agree now that you need heat, you know, you need electricity to watch this show. The gas isn't going to last forever. Why should anybody be making a profit out of something that we all need? You know, it doesn't make any difference to you when you turn the light on who provides your electricity, when you light up the stove, you know, it doesn't matter who's providing the gas. Why don't we renationalise it? And if we are making any profit out of it... and the trains and the NHS.
Man in the dark blue there.
I take my power from one of the smaller companies. They're actually based in Chippenham. They have 100% renewable energy. They have a wind farm at Delabol up in North Cornwall, and my bills have never been cheaper. And quite frankly, the renewable energy has already caught up, well, the rest of the market has already caught up with these 100% renewable providers.
So will you give us the name and address? Can we all, can we all get this wind-powered
Good Energy
electricity?
PLC, and they are based in
But I
Chippenham.
mean, will it reach... It won't get... Does it, well,
they distribute all across, as Paris said, it doesn't matter who provides your electricity, but you used to pay a premium, but the market has now capped.
Chris Bryant, can you get in the Rhondda?
I don't know, but you certainly get wind farms in the Rhondda, and there's been a lot of local opposition. I'm going to make myself very unpopular here now. I actually like the look of wind farms. I'm sorry, I find it quite sort of... and incidentally, I'm quite amused that this audience gave an enormous round of applause for renationalising everything. Len McCluskey would be delighted. But look, there are two serious things here. First of all, I think we have to take climate change absolutely seriously. Otherwise, there is a real danger that the world's waters are going to rise, and that's going to be a problem for the whole of the world. Secondly, you know, in the end, the energy that we're using at the moment is not renewable. It's going to run out. It's going to get even more expensive in 30, 40 years' time, so we have got to have other means of energy on stream. So I support all of that. But I think there are things that we could be doing about energy prices now. I think we could have a price freeze. That's what Labour's committed to and what we will do if we are elected in 2015 for 20 months. And secondly, I think we need to completely rejig not just the market in Europe on energy, not just in the UK, sorry, but across the whole of the UK, because energy prices in Europe at the moment are going down by 1.7%, whilst going up in the UK by 7.7% on average. But they're lower in the UK than they are elsewhere in Europe because the market there too is rigged. So I think we need a completely new approach to the way we organise the energy market across Europe.
Man with the spectacles there. No, the man with the spectacles there. Did you have your hand up? No. Oh, it's the woman behind you had her hand up. I'm so sorry. It looked like it was your arm, it's her arm coming out of your shoulder. Yes. Strange.
The big six energy companies are essentially a cartel. They can charge whatever prices they like. They hold the consumer in utter contempt. They hold the House of Commons in utter contempt. Yep. They didn't even send their chief executives. And as Paris says, we have a situation where essential industries are essentially being run essentially for greed and profit. And everyone in this room is paying the price.
Okay. The woman in... Yes, in orange there. Yes.
We say we're looking at renewable alternatives. Why have we got a wave hub that's not been connected, and why are we not doing more about wave power when we're an island surrounded by water?
All right.
Agreed.
All right. Harriet Sargent, what do you make of the point that was made up there about this is a cartel? Do you think it's a cartel of the six big?
Yeah, well, I think actually it's not just the six big ones as well. I mean, first of all, I would just like to say that I was around when everything was nationalised, and I can tell you it was pretty dreadful. I mean, you know, you had to wait 6 months to get a phone line, the trains were awful, so I'm not a huge fan of nationalising everything again. But I just don't think that marketplace is working.
Matthew Hancock, as the representative of the government here, just briefly on those 2 points.
Yes.
Are the six a cartel, A, and B, are the offs generally not doing their job in energy?
Well, in energy specifically, today we heard the news we're going to have a competition review and look into the question of making the market more competitive. But I was about to agree with you, sir, because the answer to this is to go for the competitive new small energy companies, which often have lower prices. I, in fact, switched to one of these new smaller energy providers. And we're making it much, much easier to switch, because at the moment it can take weeks to switch, and we're going to bring that right down so that it's easy to switch, and so that instead of having a market where it's all extremely
difficult...
difficult...
to do anything to do with these people. You can't even get them on the phone.
Exactly.
Have you looked at a gas bill?
Exactly. And what we need to do is make it easier...
But can you understand your gas bill?
What we need to do is make it easier to switch in order for everybody to take that decision you did and go for what is the cheapest option, or the option that works best for them.
Can you just explain, then, why it is that the big six keep their prices so high? If you say you've switched to a smaller, cheaper place, why are the big six holding their prices 10% up this year when wholesale prices have gone up 1%?
Because I think that the big six don't think enough people are going to switch. So they don't think that it matters what happens. And that is a problem, and we've got to sort it out. And this big six thing is quite new. You know, 15 years ago, there were more than a dozen energy companies, and that dwindled and dwindled, and the big six arrived in just before 2010. And we've got to make sure we get more competitors so that more people can drive down prices and drive down the profits of these companies by allowing switching.
But we've also got to do something about the fact that the companies themselves are just too big because they're doing all the different elements of the market. And secondly, we've got to do something about senior executive pay in these industries where there's a monopoly. I think the chairman of Scottish Power now gets £10 million a year. The chief executive of E.ON, €4.2 million. And it's not that I'm saying people should never earn those kind of amounts. It's that what I'm complaining about is that whilst prices have gone up, their salaries have doubled. And that's not on.
So, you said an interesting thing from Labour. It's under like Peter Mandelson. You've no objection to people earning £10 million a year.
I think if somebody is really, really talented, in some industries it may be justifiable, but it is not justifiable when it's effectively a monopoly industry. It's not exactly a monopoly, but it's effectively...
No, it's not. How can one person's work be worth £10 million? What can anyone possibly do that's worth that?
If Pavarotti managed, when he was alive, to sell 10 million tickets for his opera, then I don't object to that. But what I do object to is when it's made out of enforcing price rises on ordinary people who will then have to make a choice between heating and eating.
Right, I'll take one more point and then we go on, you sir.
But a lot of the price increases are due to the government's green taxes. I mean, the regulator approved a 10% increase in the transmission cost of electricity, but most people here probably don't know that. You know, that's the reality of it, and you know, it's all right to say renationalise things, but my God, I lived through... I remember walking along Southgate High Street and looking in the window to see when the lights went out. You know, so, you know, we'd love to renationalise things, Paris, but we can't afford it. We haven't any money, as a Labour cabinet minister said before he left government.
OK. All right, and you, sir, briefly, if you would.
Yeah, could Mr Hancock identify this smaller company, cheaper company that he's transferred to?
Oh, yes.
Well, as a member of
We'd all like to join it, then.
As a member of I'm not sure I want to advertise one of them. There's 7, actually, new companies since...
Well, your Prime Minister attacked Ed Miliband directly on the basis of the company that he'd gone to at Prime Minister's question, so I think you could tell the company...
There's 7...
Household hints.
It's called Ecotricity. There's 7 new companies that have started recently, and I think it's great that they should grow.
OK. We'll go on to another question. Sue McConnell, please. Sue